Hey, it's me, Valerian. In my first video, I wanted to talk about issues with the game design of Magic itself, but this time I want to take a look at the culture surrounding Magic and the different types of fans it has. The divide between so-called casual and competitive players has been the subject of much controversy and discussion, but a recurring theme I've noticed, snooping on internet for, frequented by the latter, is that they often don't have much actual experience with casual players, and therefore don't necessarily understand who we are, how we understand and interact with Magic the Gathering. I think this subject is important, as it's increasingly evidence that despite the demographics of these major fora about Magic, most of the people out there actually playing the game and shoveling delicious money into the coffers of Hasbro are what we'd consider casual. These ideas tend to perpetuate due to the relative lack of major content creators with any interest in crossing that gap. Hopefully in this video I can play anthropologist's informant for some of you and offer that perspective about who we casuals really are. So here we go! Myth 1. Casual players are new or less enfranchised. This one is pretty easy to refute. I would assume it arises from any hobby community's use of the word casual to indicate someone who doesn't care as much or work as hard at the hobby in question. Personally, I've been playing Magic for around 20 years, since I was a very young child, and I've been happily casual that entire time. Commander, the format emblematic of casual Magic as much as anything, was developed and popularized chiefly by Sheldon Menery, a Magic judge, in other words, an extremely enfranchised individual. As I'll elaborate over my next few points, casual players are not, generally speaking, some sort of inchoate larvae of competitive players at all, but rather they are often people who have opted for a different path altogether. Myth 2. Casual players are ignorant. Now, when I use the word ignorant here, I mean it not in the sense of stupid, but rather in its literal meaning, like one who doesn't know something. Many people believe that casual players are casual because they simply aren't aware of what makes a card good and what cards are the best, how to optimally execute one's turn, the fact that the best decks around are published online so one can net deck and copy an optimized list. Lots of enfranchised casual players do in fact know all of these things, and many of us are well aware of the existence of the competitive Magic scene too. We simply choose not to engage with it because it isn't interesting or doesn't look fun. Personally, if competitive Magic were the only form of Magic there was, I would not be interested in playing Magic at all. I've tried playing competitively and I found that it just isn't enjoyable for me. Myth 3. Casual players can't afford good cards. This belief is similar to Myth 2 in that it constructs casualness as only removed from competitiveness by a degree of access or availability, when for enfranchised casuals it is myself a very deliberate choice is being made to pursue casual Magic. Me and many Commander enthusiasts I know have sunk a great deal of money into Magic. Easily enough in my case that I could cash out tomorrow and build at least one modern deck instead. I actually think casual players on average might spend more than competitive players per capita if you figure that literally every product Wizards releases contains new toys for casuals, whereas people playing competitively generally build the best deck possible once and then update it as infrequently as possible. That aside, I think you'll easily see that casualness isn't about finances when you see just how expensive many cards are due to casual demand. A card like, say, Oracle of Muldiah is unplayed anywhere in competitive Magic, as far as I know, and manages to maintain a substantial price based completely on casual demand. This is clear proof of the fact that many casuals have money to burn and deliberately choose to buy casual cards instead of modern staples. As for who makes Wizards more money, a lot of people seem to buy into the idea that surely it's competitive players who buy full playsets of rares and mythics on the secondary market and therefore require stores to open that much product. But consider that a casual singles buyer who purchases a playset of Robber of the Rich for their majorly janky rogue tribal deck has made Wizards exactly as much money as a competitive player who shelled out for 4 copies of Oko to play in Standard, because these are both mythic rares. I won't pretend to know a definitive answer to the question of who's ultimately more profitable. I'm sure nobody outside Hasbro truly knows, but I feel evidence is there to not discount the purchasing power of casual players. Myth 4. Casual players look up to competitive players. I've heard this one a lot when I've tried to discuss how important competitive Magic really is to the health of the game. Personally, I don't see reason to believe that competitive Magic is especially good for the game right now, and I have my reasons for that, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. I certainly don't think the existence of competitive Magic really benefits casuals themselves at all. If anything, it makes certain cards we might want more expensive than they would be otherwise, and causes upset and strife when competitive players intrude upon casual spaces and mop the floor with people trying to fool around. But one way people suggest that it might be beneficial is if casual players see certain cards making waves in competitive formats, it will cause them to buy sealed product and chase those cards, or something like that. It should be clear that I think this premise is flawed. In all my years as a casual, I've heard a few comments here and there to the effect of course Emrakula's good, she's banned in Standard, and similar, but often with that note of irony. Aside from a few misguided individuals I've known who think any card that's worth a lot of money must help one win games of Commander, most of us decide what cards to buy based on whether or not they look fun to play with in a casual context. A lot of us couldn't even name a competitive Magic player, let alone we idolize them or seek to become like famous pro players. And yes, and franchise casuals definitely do know to buy singles when they want cards as well. Myth 5. Casual players are a homogeneous group. Now, obviously, no group of people is completely homogeneous. That should go without saying. What I really mean here is that competitive players are actually a much more homogeneous group than casual players. And I think that fact leads them to believe that casuals similarly are as similar to one another and predictable as they are. If I can use an analogy here, competitive players are sort of like the adherents of a particular religion, whereas casual players would constitute those who aren't religious. It's not that hard to pin down precisely what beliefs, say, Christians have in common with one another, whereas non-religious people are outside of the whole system of religion. The only thing that makes them a meaningful group is their lack of belief in anything. Casual players are simply all those who do not compete in tournaments seeking to win big prizes, like... casual players are outside of any kind of unifying, meaningful drive like that. Another way of thinking about this is considering the traditional 5 psychographics of Magic players, figuring competitive players are represented obviously by Spike, and everyone else, like the other 4, would chiefly be different flavors of casual. Not all casuals abhor combo decks, not all of them play EDH, not all of them care about the lore, not all of them play at game stores, and so on, but we can pretty clearly say regarding competitive players, almost all of them are fine with combos as part of the game. They don't play EDH, they play competitive formats, they don't follow the lore, it distracts or, doesn't concern what they're interested in, which is winning, and they all do play at stores, and, because that's where tournaments, that's where competitive events happen. So the shared drive for competition causes players who take an interest in that to converge upon shared traits like this in a manner that just doesn't happen for casuals. Bonus! Myth 6. Social contracts don't or can't work. Not necessarily a myth about casual players per se, but I do want to talk about this a little bit too. You've probably heard it said that the notion of the social contract or the spirit of EDH are the driving forces as to how enfranchised casuals, people who could, buy singles, they could buy whatever deck they wanted, how they get together to play mutually enjoyable and casual games of Magic. People outside of casual magic often think this is ridiculous, flimsy, surely this can't really work, except it does. Otherwise, we wouldn't talk about it so much and argue for it. I don't know what you find people do for a living, but I work in an office at a university, and at the office we have a dress code. The dress code's kind of vague, but it has a certain spirit, which I have an idea of how to respect, even though exactly what business casual means is fairly nebulous in 2019, especially for the female-bodied. There are shades of meaning within this dress code. While sneakers might generally be considered unacceptable, a pair of tidy-looking leather Stan Smiths probably wouldn't draw much ire in the office. And I think it's worth noting that nothing horrendously bad would really happen if I screwed up while choosing my outfit. A coworker might politely request that I don't wear something again, maybe, but I would never be fired for such a thing or face any disciplinary write-up. It's not a public-facing role, so I don't have to look professional for outsiders. I follow this dress code almost solely to make everyone around me comfortable, without much other incentive, and so does everyone else I work with. Even if you wear a uniform to your job, you've probably worked within the context of a social contract before in other situations. Even waiting in line at stores is arguably an example of a social contract. At any given moment, you are aware of the fact that you could, physically, push past somebody in line, and that it isn't really illegal or anything. But you choose not to do it because it is socially considered a dick move. And you fear the purely social consequences of disrupting other people. I mean, I hope you do. Even if you don't enjoy casual magic yourself, I hope that you can at least start to understand how social contracts work in this context, and the fact that for many of us, this genuinely is a good solution to the problem of how to keep things casual, even in an environment where people are following the game online, buying specific singles, and well aware of what competitive magic looks like, what cards are good, what strategies are viable, and so on. Overall, I would hope that this video essay helps dispel incorrect beliefs that many on the outside looking in have developed about what it means to be a filthy casual. There's another one for you. We don't really smell funny. Anyway, I think it's important to talk about this stuff because an awful lot of competitive players, at least a lot of the very vocal ones on the internet, often practice a kind of true fan gatekeeping around this issue. I don't believe there is such a true fan, of course, and I would never argue that competitive players are any less deserving of cards printed for them or anything of that sort. But I get the sense that a lot of those vocal competitive players really might believe conversely. Whenever a not-so-competitive card is spoiled, especially if it's, weak or bad in an obvious way, whenever a new product line aimed at casuals is announced, and whenever beginner products are in Tier 1 decks, they come out to play. Whether Wizards benefits more or less from casual or competitive players, I don't know, but they benefit to some degree from both groups, and nobody should ever be put down for being an insufficient fan, or the wrong kind of fan, or a kind of fan we can brush off, not care about, or disregard their concerns. I think that's everything I wanted to discuss about this topic, so let's wrap it up. If you enjoyed my video, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, share with another Magic fan. I'll see you next time. If my commander group tells me I'm allowed to, but they're cool enough to let me play my Tamanoa deck, so I think they probably will. Bye!